What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb, and today we're talking about Y'shtola. This cat lady has the potential to allow us to cast our entire library while killing our opponents, and I'm going to show you how we can get that strategy off today. Additionally, I want to talk about her in a CEDH setting because honestly, I think there's some potential there. But before we get into it, if you guys want to check out that whatnot link in the description down below, you can get a free $15 and it helps out the channel. Additionally, you guys can get 20% off all of your Tolarian library proxies whenever you use code DECKTECH for deck or DT4D, my bad. Additionally, if you guys are enjoying this content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Last but not least, before we get into this, if you guys would like this video, if we get it to a 500 likes, I'm just going to go ahead and rush this deck tech. I'm using these videos to not only gauge the popularity of the commander, but additionally get my ideas for the strategy out there. That way you guys can start your brews before I finish mine. Now, let's get into what she does. She's in Esper colors for CMC, and then she says, if a player lost 4 or more life at the beginning of each end step, we get to draw a card. So boom, we get card advantage. And then additionally, whenever we cast a non-creature spell with 3 CMC or greater, not only are all of our opponents going to get dealt 2 damage by her, very important that it's damage dealt, not life loss. Additionally, we're going to gain 2 life. So right out of the gate, I see a potential for us to draw a ton of cards whenever we use curiosity effects. Throw a curiosity effect on her, cast a 3 CMC spell, and we're drawing 3 cards. That's incredibly powerful. And then again, if we want to look at this from a CEDH standpoint, players are basically killing themselves every single turn using their life total at a resource. It's not very hard to make people lose 4 life per turn, and 9 times out of 10, that player's probably doing 4 damage to themselves per turn. So it's going to be very easy to trigger her ability very consistently just by players playing the game. This means you can be in Esper colors, heavy control colors, and your opponents are just going to be triggering her. You're going to draw 4 cards a turn, and that's going to allow you to find your combo pieces and win the game. It's also going to allow you to play a very heavy mid-range strategy in CEDH. This is going to allow your hand to be full almost all the time, full of that counter magic. That way you can stop wins and additionally present your own. I also like the idea that we can do Hullbreaker horror loops, generate infinite mana, and then all we have to do is cast a 3 CMC anything, probably a mana rock honestly, and that's going to allow us to kill the entire table. So CEDH potential definitely there. I'm excited to see what people brew. I also think this commander 100% wants to be playing at flash speed. Not only does this allow us to play a more reactive, powerful strategy, especially in CEDH, additionally, it allows us to trigger her on our opponent's turn by casting these 3 CMC mana rocks or just 3 CMC anything, right? Now at flash speed, we trigger it, we know we can get the card advantage. And that leads me into the more casual side of things. I think unironically, playing just a ton of 3 CMC mana rocks is going to be extremely powerful. Let me explain. If we throw in some unwinding clocks, some flash enablers, now we're playing those 3 CMC mana rocks on our opponent's turn every single turn. We're getting card advantage off of her ability, and then throw a curiosity effect onto her, and that's just going to allow us to draw even more mana rocks. And you can kind of see where we get to the point where we're just casting more and more mana rocks, untapping more and more things, and then eventually it's going to allow us to cast the majority of our library, especially when we're able to reduce the cost of our artifacts and our artifacts are tapping for additional mana. Let's get into the strategy. I want to get into exact cards that we're going to be playing to pull this off, and that way it will become more clear to you how this is actually going to work. Let's get right into it. The backbone of this deck is going to be our cost reducers, our 3 CMC mana rocks, and our curiosity effects. What's going to happen here is we want to play as many cost reducers as possible to reduce the cost of all of our 3 CMC mana rocks. From there, we need to put a curiosity effect on our commander. That way, whenever we cast one of these 3 CMC mana rocks, we're going to not only deal damage to our opponents, but we're going to draw 3 cards. And then we want to go ahead and cast as many of these 3 CMC artifacts as possible to just deal a ton of damage to our opponents. This is going to catapult us through our library. Eventually, we're going to get enough cost reduction effects to make all of these mana rocks free. And once we're there, we're just casting as many as possible, drawing a ton of cards, and all of our opponents are going to die. Or at least that's the plan. Let's talk about some cards that are really going to buff this up. The first card I want to talk about is Krark Clan Ironworks. The reason I like this here is because whenever you play a 3 CMC mana rock, you can tap that for mana and then instantly sack it to Krark Clan Ironworks, and boom, you've generated 3 mana. That is enough mana to cast another 3 CMC artifact. From there, let's not forget to include these flash enablers because I think she's going to be really powerful with them. Liberator Urza Battlecruiser, we've got Valley Floodcaller, even Leyline of Anticipation, and Vidalcan Orrery are going to be perfect here. Now we have a ton of flash enablers, and we can kind of play the game at whatever speed we want to. I also think Marina Vandrill's Grimoire is going to be super powerful here. This is an artifact that has 6 CMC, but remember, we are trying to reduce that, and it says whenever Marina Vandrill's Grimoire enters the battlefield, you get to draw 5 cards if you cast it. You have no maximum hand size and don't lose the game for having 0 life. Whenever you gain life, you draw that many cards, and whenever you lose life, discard that many cards. Then if you have no cards in your hand, you lose the game. I love this here because not only does she deal 2 damage to each opponent whenever we cast a 3 CMC or greater non-creature spell, but additionally we gain 2 life. So now whenever we gain one of these 3 CMC non-creature spells, we're going to draw 2 additional cards, which is going to be crazy. This goes without saying, but with a commander this powerful, I do kind of want to try to double up on those triggers. So Roaming Throne, Delny, very good here. We can also use clone spells like Vile Duplication and Quantum Misalignment to just straight up get more token copies of her. Simulacrum Synthesizer is also going to be amazing here. This triggers whenever another artifact with mana value 3 or greater enters the battlefield, and it's going to give us a construct token that has power equal to the number of artifacts we control. So now we're generating more artifact tokens and generating a board state that can help us defend against our opponents. Notably, there's also other routes you can take this commander. You don't have to go with this artifact storm strategy. You can include cards like Shieldred the Apocalypse and just make it to where you're draining your opponents very consistently, triggering her as much as possible, playing a mid-range strategy, drawing a lot of cards, and that's also going to be a very consistent and powerful deck. I just like very explosive turns that allow me to cast my entire library, and this commander can do that, so I'm going to try my best. I think it could also be super solid to just stick with a life gain build. She gains a lot of life as long as you're casting these 3 CMC non-creature permanents, so things like Karlov the Ghost Council seems pretty solid here. I kind of like Amelia here also. Not only does she give us the ability to discover whenever we gain life gain, so those lands are going to stay off the top of our library, and this is going to allow us to dig deeper for those 3 CMC permanents that we need to cast. She also just is a giant board wipe if we ever get her to 20 power that allows us to destroy all creatures, and I can guarantee you those creatures are going to be gunning for that life gain deck. If you made it this far, you deserve some broken tech, so I'm going to show you these cards that one of my patrons showed me. We have Helm of the Gas Lord and Sigil of Sleep. What these are going to do is not okay. Helm of the Gas Lord is going to enchant a creature, and it says as long as enchanted creature is blue, it gets +1, and whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, you get to draw a card. It also says as long as enchanted creature is black, it gets +1 and has whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, that player discards a card. So now every time we cast a 3 CMC permanent, we're doing the Curiosity thing, drawing 3 cards, but we're also causing all of our opponents to discard a card. Going to be pretty salty, but it's also going to be extremely powerful. Same with Sigil of Sleep. Whenever enchanted creature deals damage to a player, return target creature that player controls to its owner's hand. So now they're not even able to keep their creatures on the battlefield whenever we have our commander out and the game plan going. I also did want to mention this could be the perfect bobblehead deck that's actually powerful. Bobbleheads are kind of like a meme, but since we're trying to get to that 3 CMC mark and we want mana rocks, bobbleheads are just perfect here for added value that could really pop off, especially when half the strategy is to include cards like Unstoppable Plan and Unwinding Clock that allow us to untap all of our artifacts and activate our bobbleheads even more often, as long as they can be activated at instant speed. Alright guys, don't forget to like the video if you want me to rush out this deck tech. I'm really excited about this one as well. I'm actually kind of just excited for Final Fantasy in general. Now let's shout out those patrons. Excessum, Praetor, Chicken Salad, The Professional Heal, and Irrelevant. You guys rock. I hope this helped everybody in their deck building endeavors, and I will see you guys in the next one.